It's been quite a little bit on this channel that I've made a Star Wars video. The most recent one I made was my review for the Andor show, which oddly enough has some of the best writing I have ever seen in Star Wars, especially from Disney Star Wars. And I think the reason why I pulled back on Star Wars content is because it hasn't been hitting me the way it used to. I've lost a lot of trust in Disney and how they've handled Star Wars. I don't think they've handled Star Wars properly at all. It feels like whenever we get one really good thing from them, we are hit with 3 or 4 things that are absolutely abysmal. Their decision making can be weird, and don't even get me started on the terrible sequel trilogy. Now, with that being said, Star Wars Celebration was just this past weekend, and they had a big event this time around. The past couple of years have been quiet and honestly pretty boring. When it comes to Star Wars, there's really not much to talk about and there's not much to be excited about. But this time around, they announced a bunch of new streaming shows, a bunch of new movies, and also showed off trailers for these future shows. Now, I think this needs to be said. We do gotta be cautious with how excited we get, especially for some of these movies, because we've seen how the movie department has been handled under Kathleen Kennedy ever since the sequel trilogy, and they know how poorly received those movies were. They cannot seem to get a movie off of the ground at all. They constantly announce and promote these new movies they're gonna make. They get creatives on board, and then all of a sudden, maybe a year and a half later, you end up finding out that project has been completely canned and they're going a different direction. So I think it's fair to be excited, but I think it is also fair to be very cautious about the future of Star Wars movies. Why Kathleen Kennedy is still here and why she's in charge is completely beyond me. They seriously need to get rid of this woman. I think Ahsoka looks really, really good, has the potential to be one of the best projects that has come from Disney Star Wars. I think The Acolyte is sounding cool and it's got me interested. It's more on the dark side of things, so I'm gonna check it out. And I think Andor Season 2 has the potential of being just as good as Season 1, if not potentially better. But mostly, I think what is really gaining the attention of the announcements this past weekend is the movies. People are really interested in seeing what we get in a Star Wars movie after almost 4 years since The Rise of Skywalker. Now, if they just jump into these movies with no plan and no proper story, well then good luck. I'm sure we'll be sitting through another sequel trilogy type of situation again. Although Kathleen Kennedy leading this company or not, one has to hope that someone in there has learned their lesson on to not do what they did with the sequel trilogy and actually properly create movies that follow a very specific story. Now, there are 3 directors for 3 movies that they apparently have planned, and all of these films are going to take place in different eras of Star Wars. Number 1 is James Mangold, and I'm sure a lot of you DC fans here, you guys will know that James Mangold is actually writing the Swamp Thing movie for the DCU. Dave Filoni will finally be making his directorial debut in film. And the 3rd, I don't know who this person is, but it is Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy. Now, before I talk about my opinion on the future of the Star Wars films, someone did post a photo of the timeline of Star Wars. You got the Dawn of the Jedi, the Old Republic, the High Republic, Fall of the Jedi, Reign of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, the New Republic, and Rise of the First Order. Now, I guess in the future, when people come on for new movies and shows, they're going to be able to choose the timeline, the time frame of which they will want their story to take place in. And I'm assuming that may be some of the first details we will get about future projects. When is it taking place? Is it the Old Republic? Is it First Order era? I do think it is a good idea that we have a proper timeline now. I mean, we had one in the Legends canon, but in Disney's canon, we needed this to be cleared up. So it seems as if James Mangold's Star Wars film is going to take place 25,000 years before Episode 4. It is going to be the dawn of the Jedi era. It is going to be about how the Jedi were created, how they came about. And if anybody knows anything from Legends content, when Jedis first started out, their lightsabers were actually powered by a backpack they had to wear, because at the time, the technology they had would not allow them to make a proper lightsaber that we've seen in film today. So maybe there is a chance that in Mangold's film, we are going to see lightsaber prototypes such as that. I think there's a good chance that Mangold's movie is actually Taika Waititi's movie. They know it was probably a bad idea giving that guy a movie, considering he's just been a complete airhead when it comes to Star Wars knowledge. So when you look at this film from Mangold, there is a possibility that we are going to get some really big answers about the creation of the Jedi. How close they will keep it to the source material that was once told from years ago, who knows? 25,000 years ago is a long time, and Mangold can do a lot of things. He can show a lot of ideas, use a lot of different models or alien races that maybe 25,000 years from now won't even exist. If the Dawn of the Jedi story is passed on through lineage to these characters, it's such a long time that it might just be viewed as myth. So I think it will be really interesting to see what he chooses to do in a very early state of the Star Wars universe. Dave Filoni is making a Mandalorian film. And from what I believe this is going to be, is it's going to be the cap off, it's going to be the ending of his Mandalorian story. What else is tied into this? I'm not exactly sure. Does that mean certain stories like Ahsoka is being tied into this Mandalorian story? Are they all going to come together in this Mandalorian movie? I'm sure this is going to be the end of the Din Djarin character, which now Grogu will go on his own path, and I have a bit of an idea of what they're going to do with his character finally. Regardless, I think it's going to be really cool to see what Dave Filoni does with this movie, because he's like the prodigal son to George Lucas. If there's anybody in this company who knows Star Wars more than George Lucas, well, it's nobody, but the closest thing is Dave Filoni. His knowledge speaks for itself. I think we're in good hands here. Now, this is, of course, the biggest movie, the movie that has gotten a lot of people talking, the movie that some people are like, I'm on board, and the movie that some people are like, I am absolutely out. I do not want to see this garbage. It is Charmin's movie, and I'm assuming this movie is going to be Star Wars Episode 10, the one where Rey is returning. And hey, I get it. If you don't like this announcement, I do not blame you at all. If you think that this company is tone deaf and they can't tell that we don't want more from this era, I get it. I 100% understand your complaints. I hate the sequel trilogy. I think those movies are terrible, especially Episode 8 and 9. They're just not good. Would I have liked them if they prepared better and had a full... Would I have liked them if they prepared better and had a proper story to tell? Yeah, maybe I would have. Now, this is their chance to do that with the Rey character. Some people out there are vile and evil, and they place their misplaced anger on things that they shouldn't. For example, attacking the actors and the actress for doing their job, it's not their fault. What you should be doing is critiquing. The problem with these movies is that it was so poorly written. I have nothing against Daisy Ridley. I'm glad for her that she's capable of coming back. Would it have been something I would have done? Would I have made that decision? No, I wouldn't have. But you know what? Maybe this time around, the story is going to be better. I am open to the idea of her coming back and for us continuing in Star Wars past episode 9. This is their chance, guys, to really change a lot of things and to show respect to what came before, unlike what 7, 8, and 9 did, which was absolutely show disrespect. It's going to be about Rey training a bunch of new young Jedis. So why not bring in some Force ghosts? Let's get Hayden Christensen in here as Anakin. Let's get Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan. Let's get Mark Hamill back as Luke Skywalker. Let's get this stuff going. Would I have rathered they have just done this with Luke Skywalker the way they did it in Legends, where he created his Jedi temple? Would I have rather seen the Dark Empire storyline? Absolutely. But you know what? We're too far past that now. We have to take what we can get. Will they probably find a way to revive Adam Driver's Kylo Ren? Honestly, wouldn't doubt it. He's one of the best things about those 3 movies, and at the end of the day in Star Wars, who stays dead? Nobody. I think there's even a big possibility that you get Dave Filoni into this movie, of course not as director, but maybe as a full-time writer, maybe someone in the writer's room who can set Charmin and the rest of this crew on the right path. And that kind of leads to my Grogu theory. I think what's going to happen is in the end of Mandalorian, in his film, we're gonna see Grogu finally depart from Din. I think Din is gonna die at the end of the day. But when Grogu leaves, it will now be a huge stretch of time where we haven't seen him at all. And I have a feeling we will see Grogu again in this new Daisy Ridley Rey film. And I think at that point, Grogu will be a Jedi Master alongside Rey. Another thing they'll need to do for that movie, give me a reason to call that girl Rey Skywalker, because it absolutely was not earned. She is nothing more than Rey Palpatine and will be until you prove to me otherwise. I mean, the writing was on the wall with this movie. It was eventually going to happen. I even heard rumors from 2 years ago that something like this was being planned. Do you guys remember when The Rise of Skywalker was coming out and they were trying to promote it like the end of the Skywalker saga? Come on, that was never gonna happen. They're never going to stop the Skywalker saga. This is a series of movies that will constantly be made until the end of time. There is no stopping it. It makes too much money. It was only a matter of time until episode 10 comes out. Now, are we definitive that this is what it is? It is Star Wars episode 10? No, I'm just saying there is too many things lining up here. I have no other reason to believe that it shouldn't be episode 10. Also, for this Rey Star Wars film, it would be lovely if you could get John Boyega back. I don't really know how he feels towards this company anymore, so I'm not sure if that's quite possible. But I was even thinking too, if you want to do something really interesting, if you want to get some butts in seats, if you want to really attract to maybe the prequel and the original trilogy fans, what you should do is, because clearly cloning is a huge storyline in the Star Wars universe, especially right now. We've had the BS cloning of Emperor Palpatine. We're getting a lot of cloning discussions in The Mandalorian. We've had the Clone Wars. I'm not a big fan of the show, but they even talk about cloning in The Bad Batch. Why not make this a storyline where Luke is cloned? Remember the hand he lost in episode 5? Maybe somebody clones Luke from his hand and makes Luke Skywalker the Luukee version of him, where he is very, very powerful, but he's unhinged. He doesn't know how to control his powers. And I believe in the Legends comic books, he ends up turning evil. He doesn't end up joining with his counterpart, the real counterpart, Luke Skywalker. I think that would be a really cool storyline, because now not only has Rey been somewhat barely trained by Luke in the sequel trilogy, maybe we'll get to see how she was potentially trained even more by Luke as a Force ghost, but maybe we can get the clone version of him as the villain, and now she needs to take the teachings of real Luke and go up against evil clone Luke. I think something like that would be really cool. Once again, it's as simple as this. Respect the past. Respect what came before. Don't alienate and isolate. When you watch 7, 8, and 9, it almost feels like episodes 1 through 6 never even happened. Don't make 10, 11, 12 like that. Actually find a way to make it important and fit into the actual world and story. But there you have it. There are some of these projects that are coming out for Star Wars. I know there have been more that have been announced, but I really wanted to discuss mainly the movies. I of course still watch some of the shows, but I'm not as deep in it as I used to be. But maybe stuff like this will bring me back. I'm just gonna keep an open mind, but like I said near the beginning of the video, I'm going to remain cautious because we've all seen how this studio likes to operate. But anyways, everyone, as per usual, let me know in the comments below what you think of some of these upcoming Star Wars projects, if you're excited or if you're not excited at all. And until next time, everyone, I will talk to you all very soon.